Okay, U-turn friends, it's Ash here, and I actually am particularly excited about this episode today because there's so many people I know that are struggling with fertility. I have so many friends talking to me about how they found out it was their partner, and it's become this newer conversation I hear in my circles about how infertility with men has become a challenge in a lot of marriages. There's just so many layers to this topic, and that's why I wanted to bring Dr. Jamie Knopman onto the show. She's based in New York, just like your girl. And I really want to talk as much as we can about how to really get you thinking differently. And just a little bit about Jamie Knopman. She is a board certified reproductive endocrinologist with years of experience in IVF, IUI, PCOS, gestational surrogacy, so many other areas. She's the director of fertility preservation for CCR and Fertility of New York. And she graduated from Penn, which obviously, not the smartest woman, right? And what a dud. And she completed both her residency in obstetrics and gynecology and has her subspecialty in reproductive endocrinology and infertility from NYU Medical Center. I can go on and on about her awards and the way that the world knows her, and the specificity of how she's helping people. But today, I really want to start with just why are we all so caught off guard by fertility, and what do we really need to know? So, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I feel like we're like old friends. Like we could just sit and go out and
Yeah.
have a drink. I'm like, yeah, that's great.
I know. I mean, honestly, I was kind of thinking you're about to be my friend, and then I read your bio. I'm like, she's busy. She's busy. And if you know this much about fertility, you probably have kids because
I do. Yeah.
yeah, so you're
I
extra.
have two daughters, go figure, right? Who like are like, Mom, you're the most cringy person ever because you talk to all of our friends about like periods and boobs. And I'm like, but yes, yes, we
That's so
we do
fun.
a lot of puberty talk.
That's amazing. My best friend growing up from high school, her name was Kira. I met her when I was like 7. We were wearing matching purple like jumpsuits in, whatever grade it was. Her mom was an OBGYN, and she would run into people at the gym and be like, I can't recognize their face, but if I saw their vagina, I could tell you who they were. She's just like,
That's amazing. That's
yeah.
so funny. I don't think I would say that, but the funny thing for me is like I get a lot of patients from like I'm a big exerciser. And so I'll be in like the locker room and I'll be like literally naked and so like, "Hey, are you the fertility doctor?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Can I ask you a question?" I'm like, "Cool, just let me get a towel and then we'll go down the path." And then sometimes they'll come in to see my patient as my patient. I'm like, "It's sort of weird we met in the locker room, but all good, you know?"
Mm. Okay, I feel like this is obviously quite a niche that you got yourself into, and it's an important one. Why here? What happened? Why is this interesting?
Sure. So I say this, I wanted to be a doctor since I was a little kid. I read a book about Elizabeth Blackwell in the second grade, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm very linear, went to, undergrad. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to med school. I took a year off between undergrad and med school, and I worked at Sloan Kettering in their breast center. So I thought, you know what? I want to go into women's health. I want to be a breast surgeon. Got to med school, realized what I really wanted to do was women's health, but more in the OBGYN area, got into OB/GYN residency. And then once I was there, became fascinated by hormones and how the whole system worked. And that's how I got into fertility fellowship.
Okay, I feel like all my friends who work in wellness, and they're gonna just give me such a hard time if they hear this episode, but I feel like they have a hard time getting pregnant, and then my friends eating pizza and staying out late are like, oh my God, it happened so fast. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the myths that we're being told to make us afraid? Because I'm 38 and I feel like a lot of my friends are having kids later, and I feel like
Yeah.
it's a very common thing. So how can we start to like really take an honest look at this for everybody listening who maybe they're in their later 30s or they're just struggling with fertility or they don't even know what to start paying attention to in their late 20s? Like, let's look at that.
So I think unfortunately, like we want to think we can control a lot of things with our behavior. Like, oh, if I don't drink, if I have no wine and just drink like green juice, my fertility is going to be amazing. But that's not really the way fertility works, right? And that doesn't mean that we don't think you should have a healthy lifestyle. Of course, a healthy body is great for all of your organs, including those reproductive ones. But the ovaries are like they're on their own path, right? I like think of them as like my older daughter. I'm like, where is she going? She's on her own version of life, right? They are going to age no matter what you do. They're going to age from the moment you're born and they're going to tap out really in your 40s. But most women are going to live until their 80s, which is awesome, but they're going to live a lot of their life without their ovaries functioning. So the goal is that we do everything we can to address the loss of egg quantity and quality when we're young, right? And that's why fertility preservation has sort of become hot in the scene. But that's also why some of your friends who like live unhealthy lifestyles get pregnant and those that are healthy don't, because unfortunately, a lot of your lifestyle doesn't impact your gamete, your egg quality.
Mm, mm, mm. Okay, let's start with people in their 20s, men and women, because
Mhm.
both sides, like, when should somebody start to think, oh, I should get this thing checked, or I want to get my eggs frozen and I'm younger? Like, when should these thoughts begin, and what should we be thinking about?
I mean, I think they should begin early, right? Like most people, at least in New York City, right, where we're chatting from, they don't have kids in their 20s anymore. The average first birth in New York City is like 32, 33. So if you're having your first kid at 32, 33, your second's probably not coming until 35, 36. And that's really where you've gone deeper into the years of egg decline.
Mhm.
So I think it should be a part of our OBGYN, checklist. Like, hey, I'm coming here at 25 to talk about contraception and mammograms and pap smears and fertility. And
Mhm.
that should include a discussion of what you want for your future fertility, what was your, mom's, your sisters, your aunts' reproductive history, and check your AMH level, get an egg quantity measurement.
Mhm.
AMH doesn't tell you about egg quality, but if it's a low egg quantity, that is something you may want to address. Also, what are your life plans? Are you a first year med student and therefore you're locked into that training for another 15 years? And so you won't have a kid until 40? Like those are all important conversations because it'll dictate what the best next steps are.
I love this, and I think AMH, I keep hearing mixed things. So for those of you who haven't heard this term, like it's just something measured in your blood, correct? Like it's these levels.
So it stands for anti-Mullerian hormone, and it is a hormone that is produced by follicles. So going back to like basic bio, most women have two ovaries, and within those ovaries are where you store the eggs. But I always say the eggs are like if you go to a grocery store and you buy a dozen eggs, the shell is the follicle. The follicle in the ovary is holding the egg, but the follicle makes hormones. So we measured these hormones to get a good idea about egg quantity. One of these hormones is AMH. So if your AMH level is low, we're like, oh, your follicle count is low. That means your egg quantity is low. If you are not trying to get pregnant and your egg quantity is low, it doesn't mean you'll be infertile, but it suggests that you may have an earlier menopause because your egg quantity is lower at a younger age.
And I'm guessing, I mean, how do we figure out what weak means, right? Because every age has a different average. Like, is there charts that you reference, or is this like, I'm sure everybody's going to go over to Chat Daddy and ask him over at Chat GPT.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I would say there are definitely like this is like the art and science of medicine, right? Like I look at AMHs and ovaries all day long, right? So I can tell you what's low and what's normal. And there's also like we're trained to think that AMH should not vary no matter where you are in your life, whether you're on the pill or you're breastfeeding or you're pregnant. The reality is that's not true. So if I see a 25-year-old who's been on the pill since they were 15 and their AMH level is two. Now, two would be lower than you would expect for a 25-year-old, but I'm like, well, she's been on the pill pretty suppressed for 10 years. She's probably a bit higher than that, right? So there's like the art and science of what we do.
Okay. Women, you're talking about AMH. I know there's this other one, FSH. Like, I just think of the fish. I'm like, what's the fish one?
Yeah, no, you're right. FSH stands is, but this is a hormone that's made in the brain in response to signals coming from the ovaries. The thing about FSH that's a little tricky is you must be off any hormonal contraception, and it must be day 2, day 3 when it's checked. So a lot of our egg freezing patients are on, they're on the birth control pill, and we can't check their FSH, or they have a hormonal IUD and they're not ovulating. So it is impacted or they can only see you, 1 week and then they're not around. So FSH is harder to get. And we do measure it, but it's not used as much in the elective egg freezing population.
Okay. So I would say like 20s, it sounds like just being like, hey, let's start measuring my AMH. What do you determine based on the number you see or like drastic changes, right? Because I imagine, Sally goes at 27, she checks her AMH and they're like, "Oh, you're quite normal for your age." And then maybe the next year they come and they're like, "Oh, it took a dip." Is there something about where you're at in your cycle or your life that could skew it? Like talk to
Yeah.
me about
Well, technically not where you are in your cycle, right? Like it shouldn't vary cycle wise. In your life, certainly, like if you were, in a very, very suppressed state, like you were going through, I don't know, a bad divorce, or you just like lost a parent and you stopped getting your period, could that impact your AMH? Certainly it could. But I think what we need to get away from, and this is what I try and preach, is waiting for bad news before we do fertility preservation, right? Like I had a patient, I think I retrieved her on Wednesday, or not yesterday, yeah, Wednesday. She came in, she froze eggs at, she's 29. We extracted 38 eggs and we froze 30. And she's like, I'm done. And I'm like, this is why people should do it in their 20s. You do it less times, you get more eggs, you're on lower dose. Like instead of waiting for the one of the shoes to drop and then be like, oh shoot, I got to go do it before the other one drops. Just do it when you're at your most fertile.
It's funny that you say that because I remember I was proposed to, I was engaged to a really nice guy bajillion years ago. I was like 28. And I remember going to the doc and he's like, "You're only 28 and you're single, like you have time." And then there I was in New York at 34 and I got 13 eggs. Um, and I remember thinking, wow, I wish I did it earlier. And now I'm in a relationship thinking, do I want to do it again? Do I want to get embryos with him? These are all questions we think about. Can you explain a little bit around like egg freezing? Like it is so expensive for people that don't have money
Yeah.
lying around, but obviously priceless. I think some people think it's an insurance policy, but I've heard a lot of people say it's not. So can you
Well, I
explain
mean,
a
it's
little
like
bit?
any, so I compare it to this, right? You get flood insurance or you get, insurance for fire or whatever it may be. And you hope that you never have to use it, right? You could unfortunately have a flood, use the insurance, and it doesn't pay up. That's how I think about egg freezing, right? You would not go into those situations and not have insurance, right? So you're going to do everything you can to prevent it. It does not mean that it's going to work when you need it, but you don't want to go into it without it. It's even like we've talked about, it's even like wearing seatbelts, right? Like you wear a seatbelt because you want to reduce the risk of if you get into a car accident, something bad happening. Seatbelt may not work, right? But you're not going to go into a car and not put on a seatbelt. I appreciate that what I'm talking about is free versus thousands of dollars. Like, I understand that. But I'm trying to say we do a lot of things in our life hoping that they'll work out. Why is this any different?
Right, right. And I know this is kind of a very general question, but I think it's one that a lot of people would wonder is if if they are freezing their eggs, um, how many would you say make you happy as a doctor where you're like, this person has a good shot at having a kid?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so age dependent, right? If I have a 28-year-old who's frozen 15 eggs, I'm like, you're good to go, right? That should give you a baby.
Yeah.
Now, if you're 28 and you have 15, but you have coverage to do another cycle, I'm gonna tell you, do another cycle. Like, I am coming off of my Dodgers winning, so I'm super in baseball
I'm
mode.
from LA
Like,
too. No wonder we get along.
I'm not from LA, I'm from New York, but my parents are from Brooklyn.
Oh, so the Dodgers were Brooklyn before. Do you know he's not my uncle, but he kind of is. He was a Dodger.
Who?
His name's Mike Sosha, and yeah,
Yes.
like we're related through marriage in the family. Such
Okay.
a guy. But yeah, anyway, back
So like,
to
but my baseball reference, I like sports metaphors. I use them all the time. But like, if there's a guy on third base and there's one out, you must hit a sacrifice fly and drive him home, right? So otherwise, you're wasting his being on base. That's the same thing if you have coverage. I understand that it's not an easy experience physically or emotionally, but financially, it's if it's off the like, why would you not just max out the benefit and get all the eggs you can? So that's how I think about it.
Makes sense. What questions should somebody be asking before freezing eggs? Because to be honest, I've seen some friends really struggle with their egg freezing. Like they have a lot of pain. One friend, PCOS, there's all sorts of different circumstances where you feel like their bodies, like their ovaries swelled up like a cantaloupe. It's Can you talk to me
Yeah.
a little bit about
I
that?
mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely different people experience it differently, right? Like anything in life. Some people, I had a patient yesterday who did her egg retrieval. This is insane. I've never seen this. No anesthesia. She didn't want anesthesia. She had 21 eggs, 20 eggs removed, and she didn't flinch. I was like, "Are you serious?" She was like, "This is like a 2 out of 10." I'm like, "Oh my God." Now, granted, that's like a full on extreme, but we all feel things differently. So some people are super sensitive and some are not. If I have a patient who's on, who struggles with PMDD or has hormonal like anxiety or depression, I am going to reach out to the psychiatrist so we can support that individual throughout her egg freezing journey. Like, hey, these are the days she's going to feel sort of terrible. Might you increase this med or that med or increase or do an extra session, right? Also, my job is to get as many eggs as I can get safely. I
Mhm.
do not want my patient to get hyperstimulation, right? Because that is when they get sick. So that's also again, the art of what we do to get as many eggs as possible, as safe as possible.
Mm. Mm. It's interesting. So many people have had different journeys. For me, I felt like it was the easiest thing ever to freeze my eggs. I feel like I was going to the mall, get my little shot, get
Yep.
blood work,
It's
boom.
even like, think about like, I always think about this pregnancy, right? Some people are like, oh my God, pregnancy was horrible. I hated it. I never want to do it again. Or even delivery, labor. People are like, this is horrible. Then some people are like, wait, that wasn't so bad. Like, we all experience situations different and we have different bodies. So some people probably truly have easy pregnancies and easy deliveries, and other people don't.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I also know that a lot of people are blindsided by it's their partner. It's just fertility is so implied with women. And can you talk a little bit about it's the same question really about in our 20s, we look at AMH and FSH or whatever it is. What about men?
So, men, if they're interesting because they have sort of found the fountain of youth, as I like to say, like they make sperm most of their life, right? Yes, the quality and quantity will decline, but they're producing sperm. We see 30-year-old woman, 6-year-old guy. I'm like, okay, he still has sperm in there.
Wow.
But, it takes two to tango. So the reality is, it is not just a woman problem. And a lot of cases of infertility have a component of male factor. Now, that doesn't mean that men have to rush and freeze their sperm the same way women do, but it is a two-part game, and both individuals need to be evaluated when there's a fertility evaluation.
Okay. Um, talk to me for my ladies in my 30s because I know a lot of millennial women and I'm one of them. Listen to this. I'm 38, haven't had kids. I'm going to. I feel like there's so many women in this thing. It's
Yeah.
so sad because some of my friends, I see them commit to the wrong guy because they're like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah. I say I'm more therapist in many ways than I am
I
fertility doctor.
believe
Like,
it.
I like sometimes I also am married, but I was divorced. Like, so I'm like, I feel it sometimes in these conversations. And I'm like, yeah, I have been known to, I'm very blunt. Sometimes it's to my detriment. I've been known to be like, I call a patient and be like, you should not make embryos with that person. Like, it is not going to be end the right way, because you can like read these signals, right? And then you might be like, okay, then why didn't you read your own signals, lady? Who knows? But like, the reality is sometimes we want it so badly that we're blinded to the fact that like we both want different things. So if I'm sitting with a couple and my female patient is like, I would like children tomorrow, and the guy is like, I would like kids in maybe 10 years, I'm like, you shouldn't make embryos with him because you may never get to that happy medium. And then like your eggs, no pun intended, are all in his basket, and then you're screwed. So you're better off just freezing eggs, because then you can do whatever you want with those eggs down the road.
Yeah. One thing I'm also wondering is what are the legal rights and I don't know
Yeah.
question around embryos, right? Because I imagine,
Both people have ownership, right? It's his sperm,
right?
your egg. So like you can't go and be like, I'm taking the embryos, because it doesn't work like that.
What do you like do a little splitsy like Lady and the Tramp with the papa? Like you're
That's
just kind of
amazing.
like,
So
yeah.
usually in the consent you sign what to do with them, but most of the time it goes to the court. Like, they're put when they're dividing up their assets, like the embryos, and usually they're going to have to discard them or, donate them to research and stuff, because both parties have an equal voice in what is done with those embryos.
Yeah. So it's not like, the girl who goes through the breakup and she wants to use one, she can't just call an audible and be like, it's going in.
No, because also people think that too. Like both partners need to sign the consent forms. Like you can't like pull a fast one over your partner. Like it's just not fair or allowed.
Can you imagine? I mean, people do it all the time with one night stands. They just let
Well,
it.
I'm like, you cannot pull the goalie here, right? We need both, all players on the field, right? Do
Yeah.
whatever you want to do in your own house. I can't tell you what to
I
do,
mean,
but
thanks to like ancestry.com, people's one night stands are coming back to haunt them like later, and I
yeah.
love it for them. But okay, other questions I have, women in my shoes, because A, I'm here with you, but B, I just have so many friends in this position. What should we be thinking about? Like me, I have a great partner. I'm so lucky. Like him and I are probably gonna put embryos on ice. I have enough ashsicles, on ice. But what should we be thinking about? Because he's like, why don't we just wait one more year? And I'm like, is one more year the end of it
I
all?
would not. I would make embryos. 38's like a pretty like critical year in your fertility. Like it is good because you said you have 13 eggs, so that's a different situation than somebody who has no eggs.
Yeah.
But what's the harm if this just gives you like more time and more flexibility? The only thing that you're going to lose really is money, right? Because if you said your body was okay with it, if you go through it again, you're just going to have more options there.
What is it about birth control? Because I think some women listening, they don't realize that when you freeze your eggs, sometimes they want you to go on birth control.
Yes, sometimes. We usually only have you take birth control for a short window if we're trying to like sync your cycle for some reason, or we think you would do better with a little bit of suppression before you start the hormones. Some clinics, like not ours, but some clinics that are small, they do something called batching cycles. So they want everyone to start on the same day. So there's other reasons to use the pill to manipulate the cycle.
Okay, got it. Um, I literally can't stop asking questions. I feel like I have some sort of condition right now. I'm just like, "Meh, meh, meh." I want to also ask, like, for women in my shoes in their later 30s, like, what do we need to do to protect our fertility, take care of our fertility? I know egg freezing, embryo freezing is a move.
Yeah.
What are some levers we can pull, even in our early 30s, where maybe they're single ladies and they're like, I don't want to rush, like that we should.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because there is no protective medicine or protective lifestyle. The only thing we can say to you not to do is smoke cigarettes because we have data that women who smoke go through menopause earlier than women who don't, right? They're going to lose their eggs faster. So you shouldn't smoke cigarettes. We should all be healthy if we can because that's good for our body. I would say, and people may be shocked, but like the pill is actually a great option because the pill is going to turn off any natural hormone production. And a lot of pathology, gynecologic pathology, is fueled by hormones.
Mm.
So if you take off, you turn off your estrogen, your progesterone, that may stop fueling some gynecologic pathologies. And that's going to be very beneficial for you in terms of protecting you from getting like a worsening of specific diseases.
Actually, I'm curious to ask you about birth control in general because I have a lot of friends who want to get pregnant, let's say in a year or two, and they're like, I'm on the pill, I've been on the pill for 10 years. And they hear from each, I've heard from all my friends, like, oh, it took a year for my period to get regular. Like the pill really damaged me. Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So the pill does, I'm like, oh God, I've said this so many times over. This is number one
Is
myth.
your soundbite?
This is my soundbite.
Give it.
The pill does not cause infertility. It could mask fertility struggles. So if I am on the pill and I, let's say, go through an early menopause or my egg quantity goes down early, I would not know that because I'd be getting regular menstrual cycles every month. And then I stop the pill and I'm like, oh shoot, that's the pill. I'm like, no, 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 no. It was just that the pill didn't show you what was going on. Most women who stop the pill do get regular menstrual cycles within 3 months. So it's sort of a misnomer that I'm going to go on the pill and then the pill messed up my fertility. I'm all about if you want to go off the pill and see what your periods are like, go for it. But you don't have to do it simply because you think it's hurting your fertility.
Okay, that's interesting. One of my closest friends, she got off the pill and she was spotting for 3 or 4 days before her period for like a year, and it really took a lot of like wellness and supplements and health that she did. I don't know if you think that that's the stuff that worked, but
I mean, I don't know what works. That's the thing. I always tell people I'm not anti, supplements, acupuncture, whatever.
yeah.
I just don't know if those things are what moves the needle, right? And unfortunately, I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in it that we like lose the forest for the trees, right? And so like people are like, I will never eat another carbohydrate or drink or do this. I'm like, okay, you're ruining your life. Like you're infertile and you're ruining your life because you never go out with your friends. You're afraid to like have a bar, piece of chocolate. Like we have to put it back into perspective. Like it's very unlikely that what you're eating or drinking is causing your eggs to be of poor quality. Now, can you do things to improve it? Of course you can, but you shouldn't sit there and blame yourself for every, bad piece of quote unquote food that you might have eaten.
Yeah. Yeah, and then what about people who have frozen eggs and they finally meet their person and they're like, "Oh, I froze these like me, like 10 years ago or 5 years ago." Do you want to unfreeze them and turn it into embryos and then freeze them again or inject like what's
So
the
that's, yeah. So we thaw the eggs, we fertilize with the sperm source, and then we grow those embryos in the laboratory. The embryos have to demonstrate competence by making it to the advanced blastocyst stage, the advanced embryo stage. And then what we do is those embryos will get biopsied. We'll take a piece of their, what will become their placenta, and send it off for chromosomal analysis. And that will say to us, okay, how many usable embryos do you have from your frozen eggs?
That's really interesting. Is it worth unfreezing them to find out that information?
So great question. No, not unless you know who you want to make you fertilize your embryos, eggs with, right? Because people are like, oh, should I fertilize them with donor sperm to see my egg quality? And then I'm like, would you have a baby with donor sperm? And they're like, no. So I say, no, don't do that, right? Because you don't want to, yeah, it's nice to know the quality, but only if you would use those embryos if you needed to. Otherwise, why waste those eggs?
Yeah, I hope this episode gets some people really like not excited, but like ready to freeze their eggs because I think it is really important. But I guess there's a lot of people in my shoes where it's like, I have 13 eggs. I have a boyfriend I love. We're probably going to get engaged. Like, once we're engaged, does it make sense to say, let's unfreeze these and see what they
Yes, it
are? And
does. So I now tell people I think the timeline should change. I say to all my egg freezing patients, come and see me when you're ready. Don't try, then come see me. And it's not because people may be like, oh, yeah, she's trying to make money, of course. I'm like, no, because then we can plan.
I'm
I may
thinking you're
very
good, Dr. Jamie, based on your profile.
I
I think
may
you're
say
fine.
to you, go and try, or I may say to you, why don't we look at make sure there's sperm there, make
Yeah.
sure your fallopian tubes are open. How we used to practice, like we'll see in a year. People then were so long down the road of infertility that we couldn't really help them. So if I see a couple, I'm like, everything looks good, guys. Go and try for 4 months and come back and call me. And then if they're not pregnant, we haven't wasted so much time.
Yeah. So it's like coming to you when people are really thinking about it. Uh,
Proactive preventative medicine. That's what we are trying to do here. And that's actually like if you listen to a lot of these health podcasts, that's what a lot of people are preaching. Like I think it's Peter Attia, he talks about medicine like 2.0, right? Like we used to be we're the American medicine is amazing at treatment, right? But we're not as great at prevention and we get knocked for that. But egg freezing or just fertility counseling, that's like medicine 2.0, right? That's trying to be preventative rather than reactive to the pathology.
mm, mm. Talk to me a little bit about IVF, IUI, and also miscarriages. Those are a few things. I don't know if you have a hard stop in like 6 minutes, but if you don't,
No, I
yeah,
could do it. Yeah.
I want to understand.
So so miscarriages are devastating. Honestly, I think to myself, like, ugh, it's like the high to the low, right? It's like such a like you're so happy and then you're so, so bummed. And the older I get, the longer I do this, the more that I really feel for the patient. I think when I was young, like before I ever got pregnant on my own, I don't think I appreciated how devastating it was to have a miscarriage because I was like, all right, whatever, 6 weeks pregnant, fine. Then I would sit with women going through it and I got pregnant myself and I was like, holy crap, this is so like exciting to then be so devastated.
Yeah.
So I think it's a true loss and we have to recognize that and we have to mourn the loss of that. And I always say to patients like you will not get over this in a day. You won't because it's a lot and you have to let yourself mourn that loss. But then where I come in is you have to pick yourself up and get back in the game, right? We cannot be because then we'll never get the goal, which is to achieve parenthood. So I always say, more in this loss today. I need you to call me in a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is, because then we have to think about a path forward.
Hmm. Okay. I think a lot of people think about IVF like for example, I have frozen eggs. So some people think, what is entailed with frozen eggs? And by the way, on Instagram, I did a highlight and totally embarrassed myself, like coming undone, getting my eggs frozen. So anybody who wants to see what that looked like, go to Jamie after. But um, so I feel like egg freezing is more straightforward if they go check that out. But can you talk to us about, let's say you have frozen eggs or you don't, what does
Yep.
IVF look like? What's the additional cost? What's a range of what people should expect to pay for egg freezing and then IVF separate together as a, next step, that kind of stuff.
So IVF stands for in vitro fertilization. So anyone who has frozen eggs will ultimately do IVF, right? Because their eggs are in vitro in the lab and they will ultimately be fertilized. But couples who are going through fertility treatment or trying to preserve embryos will also do IVF because the egg is going to come out, be fertilized with the sperm in the lab. So when anything is fertilized in the lab, it's in vitro. If I have eggs and I decide to thaw them and fertilize them with my partner and grow embryos, that fee is going to probably cost you, very depends on lab and where you live, probably somewhere between $8,000 and $15,000 to do that part.
Yeah.
IVF is also going to be is a separate cost, right? If you never froze eggs, but now you're coming in and you want to make embryos, that's going to vary based on where you live and the clinic you go to, right? In New York, it's or LA, it's probably going to be more expensive than it would be if you were doing it, somewhere in the middle of the country where medical costs tend to be a bit lower.
Yeah.
So that's the fee. But in all of these fertility treatments, I say again, it's like the first half of the game is the same. Same shots, same blood tests, same ultrasounds. The eggs come out, that's halftime. It's either the eggs are frozen if you're freezing eggs and then you move on with your life, or the egg is fertilized by a sperm. The second half of the game is where everything changes.
Right. Okay, interesting. So what is that differential if it's like up to 15 grand depending on your market to freeze your eggs? What would you say is that additional if somebody's like, great, now I want to turn these into IVF?
It's probably going to cost you about $10,000.
Okay, I feel like this is so crazy. I'm asking you all this and people don't know this stuff, you
Yeah,
know?
people don't. And they also think like this, I get a lot. Should I thaw one egg at a time? I'm like, no, that makes no sense because you're going to spend $10,000 every time you thaw, right? And eggs need to be viewed as a cohort or a group. We want to analyze the whole cohort together as opposed to analyzing them piecemeal. So I strongly dissuade people from thawing in batches because it makes me a bad businesswoman, but it doesn't make sense. You're going to spend so much money and you're not going to get the best yield.
That's so interesting. What surprised me the most that you said was that if you have frozen eggs and you are with somebody, but maybe you don't want to have kids yet and do IVF, it is worth it to unfreeze them and make embryos so that you have that information. The reason that's interesting to me was because I had a belief that you're like disrupting these frozen things and there's like an attrition rate, right? Like every time you thaw them out, there's a risk, right? So is that really, you would say, potentially a good route to go?
I would, if I had a partner that I wanted to have children with and I had eggs frozen, I'd be like, let's see what my embryo quality is. Only time I wouldn't do that is if we think, is this individual here for the long haul? Because
Yeah.
if they are not, then I've now taken my eggs and exposed to his sperm.
Yeah. Yeah, but still, I mean, because then you kind of freeze them back up and now they started as eggs and they're ending as embryos, and then you can unfreeze them again to
Correct.
do it.
Hmm.
See, I don't know, there was something about freezing and unfreezing that I thought this is where the risks are, like you can hurt them. And I know some
No,
people.
we do it all the time. We go to eggs to embryos all the time.
Okay, that's really helpful. And I know there's storage costs for frozen eggs people don't think about. And where does
Hmm.
insurance come in? Because I know health insurance is like a whole clusterfuck of our time right now, but
Yeah, it really is. Well, the one thing I will say is there's a new world out there and there's fertility benefit programs. You have your progenies, your mavens, your carrots. These are programs that different businesses, companies will partner with. And then what happens is you don't have, so the old school days, I had to prove that I was infertile in order to access my infertility benefits. If I'm a 32-year-old woman who comes in and I want to freeze my eggs, they're going to say, you're not infertile. They don't care that I will be infertile if I don't do anything, right? So I couldn't access the benefits even if I had them. Now that's not the case. These new fertility programs are written such that you have, $20,000, $30,000, and you can do with that money whatever you want. So you can freeze your eggs. If you're a same sex female couple, you can have a baby with donor sperm. You don't have to come in there and prove that you're infertile.
I love that so much. And it feels kind of rare still because, it's like people shop for insurance and it's kind of, it's like we have ChatGPT, which, it's like we can put insurance companies and policies up against each other, but it feels very much like a weird cave that we're going into trying to figure out what's the difference between IVF and IUI. And
So IUI is intrauterine insemination. So fertilization still happens in the body, not out of the body. It's in vivo fertilization as opposed to in vitro. So you take sperm and you put it into the uterus. Now, IUI, the success rates are nowhere near the IVF success rates. But for certain patients, they don't need IVF. If you are a young same-sex female couple, you can do IUI, right? You're just exposing your body to sperm at a specific time.
Mm.
If you are, have a partner who travels a lot and therefore you're never around each other when you're ovulating, you can do IUI, right? So we don't have patients linger in IUI land, as I like to say, forever because you're not getting the same success and it's still costing you money. But frequently we start there if we think the couple is a candidate for it.
Okay, this is so cool. I mean, what have I not asked you about fertility preservation, how to like make sure, because I've just had a free for all over here.
I'm trying to think. I think like it's so funny. My husband always says he's like, "You're the most popular guest at a cocktail party," because everyone's like, "Can I ask you a
Oh,
question?"
for
I'm
sure.
like, "Sure, yeah, whatever." I'm trying to think. No, I think we covered it. I mean, we didn't touch on the reason that probably, I mean, mostly that we met each other was through the book. I wrote a book, which is coming out in January. Um, and I did that because I saw the landscape changing dramatically. And although everyone in my household tells me I'm very loud, I'm only as loud as my own office with my own patients. So this was a way to get that message out beyond the four walls of my office.
Okay, awesome. And can you tell everybody the name of your book? And also, I'm going to put it in the show notes.
Great. It's called Own Your Fertility. And it's about like it's a call to action for women. Last we joke around like the elevator pitch is reproductive autonomy, owning your future, and really knowing what's accessible to you. It's for you if you want kids or you don't want kids, right? Because our decisions are fluid. You may not want kids at 25 and really want them at 42. So it's about knowing what's access out there and what is accessible to you.
This has been so like weirdly fun to talk about fertility with you because you're fun and you're definitely going to be dealing with my embryos very soon, Dr. Jamie. So this started on the U-Turn podcast. It's ending
Yeah.
with embryos. It's
That's
very
amazing. No,
productive.
actually, I was like, wow, we had such an easy. I'm like, I feel like I've known you forever.
Yeah.
It was really nice to talk to you. Yeah, and I'm excited we were able to find some time to do this.
Yeah, thanks again for coming on and everyone listening. Hopefully you could check out my egg freezing highlight on Instagram. I'm not very good at trying to do influencer stuff, but it is a pretty comprehensive one because I thought it was important. And by the way, I've never gotten so many DMs in my life as I did when I showed people freezing my eggs. Never. Never got so
Wow,
many story views in my life showing the full process. The clinic actually gave me like a crazy discount because they were like, we've gotten so many people from you. I didn't even expect it. So it really blew my
that's cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
it shows you like people don't want to show you that they're like doing shots and I don't know if there's something about being a woman and doing it or what the
Well,
stigma.
I think like I've met you for, 30 minutes. You're very authentic, right? I feel like I am too. Like I let people see the real side of me for better or worse. But I think that resonates with people because we're all trying to like be this perfect version of what we see on Instagram or in social media. The reality is that's not real life, right? And so when you let people in, they feel comfortable and they feel connection. And that's really what we want to build on social media, right? Is to foster these relationships.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, I hope that when I contact your office that I get the VIP love and I don't have to wait 5 months to talk to you, but I'll see you soon.
I'll see you soon. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thanks again.